welcome back to Garbro's Field Desk. I have for you Chapter 10 of the Emily Braun's second book series. I said it all wrong. Emily Braun's book series, book 2. I don't know. What? Brain, no work, big funk. Remember that book 1 is on sale on Amazon and the coffee. Stop by the coffee, wish to help out the channel and donate. Buy a patch, buy a keychain, yada yada, blah blah blah. I'm pretty sure most of you skip past the intro anyway, don't you? Let's get on to Chapter 10.
Chapter 10. Uninvited Guests.
I do not appreciate that human in the gas station.
Humir grumbled as she unwrapped the cream cheesecake that Emily had brought out to her. Emily rolled her eyes, handing a small sack to Marill.
Because of the comment about your ears? Or the comment about your legs?
My ears, obviously.
Humir said, peeling back the rearward side of the wrapper.
I am well aware I have shapely legs, and have worked very hard to keep them that way. Something you won't maintain if you keep stealing orders of chicken and waffles, might I add.
Still can't believe you just sneaked someone else's order, Emily.
Marill said as she fished a can from the sack, looking down at the label with a raised brow.
Sugona Energy. What a stupid fucking name. Also, what's wrong with him talking about your ears? At least they were talking about you. I knew full well that bird woman spat my food. And am I not enough for you?
Emily teased, looking up at Marill with a grin. Marill opened the can with the crack and hiss of the pull tab, glaring down at it.
More like I'm not enough for you, from what I've heard.
You just don't talk about a lady's ears like that.
Humir sniffed, ignoring the both of them as she took a bite of her cream cheese bread. They had been driving straight through the morning and night, arriving 50 miles outside the new hunting grounds around 3 that morning. With all of them needing sleep, they had grabbed a room in a dive-tail, refreshing themselves. Ogledock had enough forethought to take his time with Emily with grace, though Emily did notice he did look more worried than usual when she had gone off with her team on their hunt. That is not to say that Emily felt it would be a one-and-done kind of situation. After all, Ogledock was good at what he did, and his enthusiasm didn't hurt either. As Emily cracked open her own can of morning go-get-'em, she looked down at her phone, while behind her the small town was rife with activity.
We'll be there in roughly an hour. After that, we can set up camp and get ready to go to work.
I'm looking forward to going back to our normal job,
Humir said with a snort, already halfway through her breakfast.
No hero duties, no fighting horrors beyond imagination.
Marill shrugged.
Well, that's not saying they won't be there. Who knows what kind of sneaky shit they've been up to since we took down that asshole in Vegas. They may be the least of our worries for a while.
Emily mused, holding up her phone for Marill and Humir to see.
We have bigger things to worry about.
Marill whistled out past her can.
Is that a fucking tank? Looks like a patent.
I've seen these in your museums,
Humir said, eyeing Emily's phone warily.
But this one looks very new and very active.
They apparently came in with tanks and a few other vehicles, and this big bastard has been causing some trouble for the divers.
Emily said, turning her phone back towards herself. Her phone made a small chiming noise, letting her know a text message had come in. When she saw it was Ogledock, she opened it and took a swig from her drink can. She almost blew a water stream out of her nose when it turned out Ogledock had sent a picture of himself, holding up his shirt and showing off his stomach muscles with the caption, "Low-calorie beefcake," in bold letters along the bottom. She managed to only bark out in strained laughter, coughing a little as Marill leaned in to look at her phone.
Mine are bigger,
Marill said with a snort, though her ears did drift backwards in annoyance. Humir looked between the two of them, finishing off the last of her cream cheese bread with a light suck to her thumb.
Meme?
Yeah, sure, a meme.
Marill grumbled. even as Emily kept coughing and trying to get her fit under control. When Emily cleared her throat, she masked the shit-eaten grin on her lips enough to turn to her fellow teammates.
All right, let's mount up. We got plenty of water and food in the kangaroo wagon over there to keep us out for almost a week.
Humir said, turning and giving the mottled hood of the highly customized fox body a pat.
Onward we go again, my mighty steed.
Due to the absolute madman level of suspension Jomesha had put under the fox body, it bounced like a sugar-high ridden kid on a pogo stick whenever it hit rough terrain. After having to go hard off the shoulder to avoid a VTOL jet fighter making an emergency landing, the fox body earned the name Kangaroo Wagon after it handled the side of the road with jaunty hops and bounces, all while not spilling Humir's drink that sat in the cup holder. Marill had other things to say about the ride, but she did relent that it would have been worse in any other vehicle. While Humir fussed with the passenger side of the fox body, Marill leaned down towards Emily, her eyebrows raised. Emily played at being coy, looking at Marill with her own raised eyebrows as she drank from her can.
You gonna make me ask?
Marill said, her cheeks flushing slightly.
By the brass, just kiss the woman so we can get on with our day.
The torque sighed out into Emily's brain, and she had the feeling it was rubbing its temples. Emily pulled the can away from her lips an inch.
Ask? Ask for what? You want something? Emily?
Marill whined.
We're about to go on a mission? Don't people usually, do something beforehand?
The torque spoke again, its disgust thick on its voice.
Why must you drag these things out? Was it not bad enough I was touching Uncle Doc's thigh directly? Or had him breathing on me like a snorting deer rut? Thoughtless behavior from you both.
Emily shrugged, turning to face Marill.
I mean, if you want something, you better get over here and take it then. Because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Marill screwed up her lips, quickly glanced over towards Humir to make sure she wasn't looking, then darted down to kiss Emily on the lips. Emily, naturally, giggled, giving Marill another quick kiss when she pulled away.
Gay!
Another diver called out from the road, leaning out his window with a trollish grin.
Fuck you, guy!
Marill yelled back at him, balling up the fist that wasn't holding a can. The remark elicited another string of laughing and giggling from Emily, while Marill fumed, and Humir popped her head up from tightening down the water jugs.
Who's gay? Something gay happen?
Humir asked, turning left and right on her heel and looking around.
I look away for 1 fucking minute and I miss something.
Emily chuckled heartily, giving Marill a pinch on the cheek while looking over to Humir.
Don't worry, princess. You didn't miss anything. Just divers giving each other some friendly shit.
Absolutely weird, you humans,
Humir said with a shake of her head. Having packed away all the extra gear they bought at the gas station, Humir pinched at the knees of her pants, pulling them up as she stepped from side to side. With a few swift strides, she jumped, sliding gamely across the hood of the fox body with a slick glide of uniform pants-on hood paint. She came down on the driver's side of the fox body, then gave a whoop.
Got it!
Humir called out, punching her fist in the air. Emily rolled her eyes, reaching over and grabbing her helmet from the Zundap.
Regular Duke, that one. We'll see if she can do it correctly when it counts.
Marill said, already stepping into her trailer and buckling herself into place with the harness.
Watching her practice over and over in the parking lot was amusing enough.
Emily said, buckling her chin strap.
She ate shit like a champ a few times.
She also has very good hearing, and all those falls were controlled.
Humir called out, turning the key on the fox body and bringing the engine rumbling to life. Emily smiled.
She pulled a full scorpion twice. I highly doubt those were controlled falls. Those learn faster than most. And make sure to hide the failures along the way.
Marill grunted. Emily mounted her motorcycle, started it, then pulled out in front of Humir, leading the way for the rest of the journey down the road. The Rocky Mountains loomed ahead of them, their peaks piercing into the sky like fangs. Emily had always liked the mountains, having vacationed there many times with her family, though they always wanted to go skiing and never let Emily snowboard due to it being too tomboy. A bitter pall hit the back of her throat when she thought of her parents chiding her, then to how she left them down in the underbelly of Vegas. For all she knew, they were still there, or perhaps even eaten by the rest of the living creatures in the raft. She swallowed angrily and looked back up to the mountains. Like every other hunting grounds, the area they were heading to was full of clear and constant dangers, though instead of creatures of shadow, it was their followers and whatever else had slipped in during the crack storms. Not to mention this rogue army that had been shoved through the tiers in reality and currently trying to establish a beachhead. Divers who had survived and come back with their loot remarked that the area had been an old hunting ground, a valley being flooded with salt water due to the machinations of the shadow beings and their cultists, and the old stolen treasures still littered the area in mass. However, there were also pieces of odd tech being found, items of real power, brought in by the unlucky passerby that gets sucked in through the tears, as well as the trading of people. Due to the rarity of some races that fell through, they were being sought after by researchers, as well as less savory people who believed they had a need for such exotic form of humanoid. This has led to open conflicts between divers and these unsavories, as they were being called. When divers ran across a band of those snatching up people, gunfire and violence broke out damn near on contact, the largest being 2 company-sized elements getting into a firefight along the hunting grounds, which lured in a band of the animalistic soldiers from the other plane. The fight turned into a 3-way slaughter fest, with both divers and unsavories pulling back through the trees to avoid the withering and accurate gunfire of the alien army and their armor. The divers managed to escape with some of the victims of the unsavories, but it was learned that the unsavories still managed a nearly $400,000 payday. The dive turned from straight, boring roads to winding, spiraling blacktop through the mountains, the air growing colder the further up they went. Autumn was in full swing, and despite the fact that the trees were shimmering gold and evergreen, it was becoming quite the bitter bite when they got halfway up the goal altitude. Humir broke first, but inside, both Emily and Marill were happy she did, allowing them to quickly slip on their coats while Humir pulled on her parka, teeth chattering. Emily quickly realized that the winding style of road was adding more time than they thought, and they arrived towards the coordinates on their GPS an hour later than they planned. Ogledock, using both his connections and satellite imaging, found an old logging road from the 1980s that had been unkept by mountain rangers in order to traverse deep into the forests. Due to the rough road, though, it didn't get a lot of traffic and was almost an hour away from the diving location. This road, however, was no issue for the Zundap and the Fox Body, the 2 vehicles making quick work of the old truck tracks and barreling through the trees when they had to. While it had been unkept before the shattering of the plains, it appeared that the Rangers did not quite have the budget or manpower to manage it now. Jomesha must have assumed so, because he made the Fox Body more than capable of lurching around rocks, gullies, and in between the tree boughs. The Zundap and Fox Body had splashed across a shallow river when Emily spotted a clearing some ways to their left. She checked with the GPS strapped to her handlebars and saw it was their camping spot, and turned the bike towards it. The clearing had enough tree cover to keep them hidden if they chose, but was open enough to allow a helicopter to land if such a need arose. Humir pulled the vehicle up next to Emily's motorbike, the engine clicking and hissing lightly as she turned it off, and the elf stepped out past the door, taking in a deep breath through her nose.
This is very nice. A fun drive, too,
Humir said, beaming around at the shimmering gold leaves of aspen trees.
You didn't have to hit every fucking divot.
Marill bellowed out, slamming down her safety harness onto the deck of the trailer.
It was like riding a broken roller coaster back here.
Humir sniffed royally, then looked at Emily, speaking quietly.
Skill issue.
She'll kill you, you know.
Emily murmured back, neither of them flinching as Marill bellowed with a furious outcry and a tough box holding their tent sailed over their heads, slamming into the ground and rolling across the grass with squeaks of protest and hinges.
There is something living around here. I can smell them.
The Torque said, and Emily furrowed her brows.
You can't smell anything. You don't even have a nose.
What a hurtful thing to say.
The Torque replied dryly.
Can you tell anything about him?
Emily thought back to it, setting her helmet down onto the seat of her motorbike. The Torque hummed, and she could feel it scratching at its non-existent chin.
It's not unfriendly, but it's not exactly friendly either. Feels rather short.
Short-tempered?
Emily asked, pulling out her rifle and checking to make sure there was brass in the chamber.
Nah, just short. I'm thinking under 5'5".
The Torque said. Emily blinked in confusion, wondering how someone could smell how tall someone was, but turned as Marill stomped past her, holding 2 other tough boxes under her arms. Within short order, the base camp tent was set up, as well as their communications suite, and after another hour, Emily had everything unpacked onto the plastic shelves within the tent.
Marill?
Emily called out, placing the last rifle into the rack. Marill poked her head past the open door flap, holding a pair of 30-gallon water jugs in each hand.
Yeah? I'm gonna do a quick patrol around the perimeter. Would you mind setting up the beds?
Emily said, picking her rifle back up from the rack and wrapping the strap around her shoulders. Marill darted her eyes towards Humir, who was lounging in the grass and trying to get her rocket stove working, then back to Emily.
How many beds?
As many beds as you think is right.
Emily said flatly, tucking fresh magazines into the slot on her plate carrier as she turned to cock an eyebrow at Marill. Marill swallowed, taking in the sight of Emily going into the usual look she carried about her. It wasn't just the bold scars or the bolder red braid that trailed down her back, but the total package of modern warrior badass. When Emily had a weapon in her hand and her plate carrier on, she held an aggressive ease about her, as if she could stride into a gunfight while chewing bubblegum and not caring the entire while. But more importantly, Marill had the ability to become the big spoon to such a person.
Okie dokie.
Marill said, nodding to Emily. Emily rolled her eyes, knowing just where Marill's mind was, and sauntered out of the tent, the mare's leg waggling jauntily in its holster.
Get your mind out of the gutter. It's not in the gutter.
Marill muttered, ducking inside the tent to put the water jugs down. Emily stepped out through the grass towards Humir, her Bren rifle hanging across her chest.
Humir, I'm heading out on a walking patrol. Don't set the clearing on fire.
That would require fire, which I'm having a lot of trouble making at the current moment.
Humir growled, giving the entire propane-powered stove a shake. As Emily walked by, she saw the tag on the fuel canister and managed to stifle her giggle.
Humir, that can is empty.
And how would you know that?
Humir said haughtily, leaning backwards to glare up at Emily.
Because the internal meter on the side of the canister is red.
Emily said, stepping out towards the edge of the forest. She heard Humir unscrew the can, look at it, curse, then heard the can plunk off the side of the fox body. Emily chuckled to herself as she made her way past the first vanguard of the forest. The trees that always stood away from their fellows as if performing the role of a scout. The sound of the grass shushing past her boots made her smile. She loved the woods, especially ones like these, where the grass was thick, untouched, and floral. By the time she started her little patrol, the aroma of the woods and grass had filled her nose and soothed her soul. Better was the hush of the wind through the leaves, carrying with it the fragrant lull of the evergreen trees. She was so wrapped up into the smells and sounds of the forest, she almost didn't notice the sound of another pair of feet walking through the leaves, and she quickly brought herself back to guard.
You see it?
Emily thought to the Torque. She felt the Torque nod.
He's just to your back right, walking along with us and checking you out.
What is it?
Emily asked, and very quietly took her rifle off of safe with a slow rise of her thumb.
You know, I don't really know. I think it's a satyr.
The Torque said, and she could hear it scratching at the side of its non-existent head.
About 5 feet tall, got furry legs, flesh from the waist up, got some fluffy shit around his neck, bushy eyebrows.
Sounds kind of cute.
Emily thought, but fought to not turn her head. The Torque shrugged into her mind.
I mean, sure. Not really your type, though. It's not a huge, muscly centauress or a hung changeling.
You watch yourself.
Emily growled to the Torque, but cocked her head just enough to catch a glimpse of the being. Just as the Torque described, the little fella appeared to be around 5 feet tall and had legs coated in a thick layer of fur, ending around the waist where it had wrapped the arms of a sweater. His upper body was pale, but had normal flesh, all the way up to his neck where a thick ruff of fur lay under his chin. He had a soft, wary face, but the thick eyebrows and mildly pouty lips made him extremely cute at a glance.
Aw, he looks like a little kid.
He's around 50 years old.
The Torque said, amused.
Well, he's pulling off his age well.
Standard Fae bullshit.
Emily snorted, which seemed to startle the thing walking beside her, but Emily pretended not to notice. She continued her little patrol in silence, just looking up and around from time to time in order to snatch glances at the little creature still walking behind her. After 20 minutes of walking, the little thing with the hairy legs quickly trotted up to walk beside Emily, its eyelids half lowered as if trying to prove it was at ease with this decision. Emily made a point of not looking down at it, but nodded her head.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
It said, and Emily could have squealed in delight at the voice. It was the kind of voice that could make a gruff biker wilt, and make any woman want to pick 'em up and take 'em home.
Having a good morning?
Emily asked it, stepping over a thorny bush with a crunch of her boots. It shrugged again.
Okay morning. No fighting today.
Emily nodded again, still keeping up her idle pace, but having to swing her legs out a bit to slow herself down, allowing the little fellow to keep stride easier.
Always good when there's a morning with no fighting.
Yeah, too much fighting nowadays.
It said, and Emily noticed it had little fluffs of fur on its cheeks, and that it also had rather fluffy ears at the side of its head.
Been out here long?
Emily asked it, kicking over a piece of metal that had clearly come from something that had been both flying and on fire. It shrugged again.
Dunno, fell true. Been here months.
All alone?
Emily asked it. It nodded.
Yeah, only me.
Hungry?
Yeah.
Emily looked out across the clearing to where she knew the tent was, idly chewing on the inside of her lips as she thought.
Want to have some lunch with us?
The creature stopped, so Emily did as well, finally turning to look at him fully. As she did, her feminine heart melted at the full sight of him.
Round can have lunch?
He said, pressing the tips of his delicate fingers together. Emily nodded, a bright smile on her lips.
Yes, you can join us for lunch. We don't mind.
Ram tapped his fingers together a few more times, then looked a little afraid as he looked up to Emily.
What about big lady?
Don't worry, I won't let the big lady hurt you.
Emily said with a laugh, which seemed to cheer up Ram a considerable amount.
Shall we continue our walk? I have to make sure this area is safe, you know.
Yeah.
Ram said with a nod.
Finish walk.
The walk around the perimeter of the clearing with the little creature known as Ram was pleasant, as far as walks could go. Ram got a little nervous when the distant crackle of gunfire echoed over the treetops, but Emily knew it was so far away that it wasn't really much to pay mind to. Coming around the edge where her camp lay, Emily looked down at Ram with an easy, friendly smile, then called out to Humir and Marill. Humir was the first to duck her head from out and around the fox body, holding one of her canteen cups with a spoon poking out of it.
What the hell did you come back with?
Humir asked aloud to Emily, taking her spoon back up with her free hand.
Marill, Emily came back with something she's probably going to want to keep.
If it's fairy and eats, she can take it back where she found it.
Marill said, but when she walked out of the tent, her feet fumbled to a stop when she caught sight of Emily and Ram.
Emily? What the hell is that thing?
Emily shrugged.
He says his name is Ram.
I am Ram.
Ram said, reaching up with nervous fingers in a wave.
Hello, big lady.
Marill narrowed her eyes.
What does he mean by big lady?
Marill, you're like twice his height.
Emily said with a laugh, walking up past her motorcycle with Ram in tow.
Besides, I invited him to have lunch with us. And he may know things we want to know.
Marill still glowered down at Ram with narrowed eyes, one of her horsey ears flicking in annoyance.
He's not going to turn out to be some kind of voracious ration hound, is he? We may have a surplus, but we can't go feeding the entire forest.
Emily chided, then pointed to a small stack of folding chairs that were sitting on the trunk of the fox body.
Go grab one of those, Ram. Have a seat.
Ram looked over at the chairs, confused, but obeyed, stepping over with a quick, choppy stride due to the length of his legs. While Emily pulled the lid off one of the canteens to get a drink, Ram took to the task of figuring out how the folding camp chair worked. Marill and Humir stared after the little humanoid with open curiosity and suspicion, though Emily didn't seem to pay him much mind at all.
What is he?
Marill asked quietly to Humir, leaning down towards her ear while stirring her own canteen cup, having poured a large sachet of powdered drink mix into it. Red flavor, of course. Humir tilted her head at Ram, her silver ear caps glinting in the sun.
I am really not sure. Even with that sweater wrapped around his waist, it looks like he has thick fur covering his legs.
Yeah, and his feet are paws.
Marill said, pointing vaguely with her finger towards him.
Plus, he has like regular flesh everywhere else.
Humir nodded.
Except for his neck and a little bit on his cheeks. It looks like someone was attempting to make someone who was especially cute, but more towards an odder, more eclectic design.
Do you think it's a chimera? Or maybe some kind of broken changeling?
Marill murmured, taking a sip from her canteen.
Perhaps, but even then, he may just be something that fell through in a random slip. Remember the sentient teddy bears?
Humir said, spooning some of her oatmeal up and away from her cup. Marill snorted, bringing her cup away from her face.
They unionized, you know.
It's not nice to talk about people when they're in the same room as you, Marill.
Emily said while thumping the side of her hip against Marill's front leg, causing the centauress to sputter as the drink in her canteen splashed against her lips.
We're not in a room. We're outside.
Humir mused, looking up and around them with her eyes as she popped her oatmeal-laden spoon into her mouth.
Unless you're feeling something we're not.
All of them turned to look at Ram as he made a satisfied "Ha!" popping out the folding chair in its correct expanded form and then hopping up into the seat of it.
He can almost lay in that thing, huh?
Emily said over the lip of her canteen, and both Marill and Humir nodded. Emily grabbed another chair that was near the tent and ambled over towards Ram, popping open her chair one-handed with practiced ease, then sat down, folding a leg over the other as Ram licked his palm and ran it through his hair.
You thirsty?
Emily asked him. Ram looked up and around to Emily, looking as if he had forgotten she had even existed for a few moments, but nodded.
Ram can drink.
Emily handed her canteen towards him, and he took it with a nod.
Thanks.
So, where did you come from?
Emily asked him as she pulled out a second canteen from her pocket, glancing over towards Humir as she brought her own chair over, setting it down on the other side of Ram. Emily noticed with a quirked brow that Humir had her pistol both unlatched and its safety off, but the elf just cast her own glance to Emily, spooning more oatmeal past her lips. Ram took a deep swig from the canteen, some of the water spilling down his chin, then brought the canteen away with a contented sigh.
Ram fell through crack in the ground. Fell through with family.
Your family?
Humir asked him, pausing her spoon halfway towards her lips. Ram nodded, wiping out his chin with the wrist of his canteen hold in hand.
Fell through. Pasta and littles.
Your children and your wife? Partner? Mate?
Marill asked, settling down on a ground pillow. Ram nodded again, though his mood seemed to take a turn downwards.
Yeah, I'll go now.
Emily screwed up the corner of her mouth, looking towards the forest tree line.
You've been living here, in the woods, all on your own.
Yeah, I don't mind. Peaceful mostly. Kinda like home.
Ram said, then took another drink from the canteen.
Nowhere else to go.
Emily sat up in her seat, and Marill rolled her eyes.
Uncle Duck would say no.
Marill said, taking a sip from her canteen cup. Emily turned towards her.
How would you know? He has nowhere else to go.
He is small. Could be sneaky.
Humir said with a sideways nod of her head, then turned fully towards Ram.
Do you have any powers, Ram?
Ram shrugged.
Kind of. I can sense a want of bodies. Can hide in the shadows.
See, he can hide in the shadows. Explains why none of us saw or heard him.
Humir said with a smile, gesturing with her spoon towards Ram. Emily nodded.
Didn't even know he was behind me until he made himself known.
So, we're supposed to just trust some little woodland sprig that came out of the trees because he's cute and talks in a funny way?
Marill said in exasperation, opening her arms towards Emily and Humir.
If we were in a horror movie, we'd all be dead because we let that creature into camp.
Ram gave a small burp, then sighed out in contentment against the back of his chair. Emily and Humir giggled at this, while Marill pinned her ears back.
See? This is how they get you. They lure you in with being all cute and looking like something out of an anime. Then, when we go to sleep, wham! He's stabbing into our necks with a hidden knife and wearing our faces while he dances in the moonlight.
Marill said in quiet outrage, gesturing at Ram with her finger. Ram grimaced.
Why would I wear a face? That's gross.
Good point, Ram.
Emily said with a sly wink towards Marill, who slapped her hand to her forehead.
Emily, don't encourage this. You shouldn't even brought him here.
Marill said with palpable exasperation. Emily reached into her pocket and pulled out a slightly melted candy bar, holding it out towards Ram.
I don't know about that. What if he watched camp for us? We could all go out together while he holds down the fort.
Are you out of your mind?
Marill guffawed.
We don't even know this guy. We could all go out and come back to all of our shit gone.
Humir scraped the last of the oatmeal onto her spoon, humming to herself.
All of our stuff is tracked, is it not?
Joe Mesha has sewn-in trackers that power themselves off of thermal energy.
Emily said, laughing in her throat as Ram struggled with the wrapper. Humir leaned over towards Ram and helped him split the wrapper open with her free hand.
Then he can't get far, even if he wanted to.
Ram can look after camp.
Ram said with a bright smile towards Humir, then opened the rest of the package and gave the candy bar a sniff.
Have done so a few times, when hunting is lean.
Marill looked at Emily and Humir as if they had taken a long drink of the Kool-Aid.
Are you too serious? You met this guy on a walk, and now you're gonna trust the entire camp to him? I thought that's why we had drones.
Aw, come on, Marill. We're helping out the locals.
Emily said with a smile again, then chuckled as Marill exploded.
The locals? We're in the fucking woods. There are no locals.
Marill shouted, causing Ram to flinch back towards the rear of the chair. Humir pointed a finger towards Ram.
There's one, right there.
We should have left you underground.
Marill said ruefully, earning herself a deadly glare from Humir and a snort from Emily. Ram, for his worth, turned to look at the fox-body Mustang.
If big lady worried, why didn't I put stuff in the wagon?
Yeah, big lady. Why don't you just put all your expensive shit in the wagon?
Emily chided playfully, jabbing her thumb over towards the fox-body.
Let the kangaroo watch over your stuff so the little evil forest gremlin doesn't get it.
Marill rolled her eyes, swirling her canteen cup.
Emily, so fucking help me.
I can put a little spell over our things if that will make you feel better,
Humir said, giving one of her ear caps a little wiggle.
It will let us know when something leaves a very tight radius. Besides, it would be beneficial having all of us out at the same time. No one is left alone.
Marill grumbled from around the rim of her cup.
Now she's using solid logic.
Come on, Marill. Give the wee little forest gremlin a chance. Winter is coming and he's gonna need money for food.
Emily said, making an overly pouting face towards her.
How is he gonna pay for his Pop-Tarts down in town without money?
Ram's furry ears perked up at this odd word, and he leaned forward in the seat of the camp chair.
Pop-Tart?
Fucking hell.
Marill said, rubbing at her eyelid with a finger while taking a sip from her canteen.
We're already low on funds, and Ogledock is gonna murder us when we get all of our shit stolen.
Ram tapped his fingers together, looking around the little camp with an appraising look, then glanced back over towards Marill.
What if Ram share information? Will big lady feel better?
Say, I knew you knew something.
Emily said with a grin and leaned forward in her chair.
How about we get you something to eat and you tell us what you know, eh?
Ram nodded with a smile.
Humir, would you mind warming up some water for a few of the camp rations?
Marill sighed and got up off the ground cushion, dusting off her equine front leg.
I can get the water. Humir, if he makes a lunge for one of the guns, blast him with a firebolt or something.
When Ram looked alarmed, Humir winked an eye at him while pulling out her own canteen.
Don't worry, I only use those when I need to. They always make me smell like burnt hair.
When the food pouches were fully rehydrated, Ram quite happily began to tuck into them, though Marill chided at him and forced him to use a spoon. In between mouthfuls of creamy chicken rice, Ram began to regale them in what he knew, as well as the other camps he had helped in the past. While most of the camps were welcoming to a camp minder, something that Ram became quite adept at, others would be outwardly hostile nearly on sight, leading him to adapt and slowly probe the camp to see what their mentality is.
Is why I walked behind Emily for so long.
Ram said, licking a few strands of rice from his thumb. Marill nodded, despite her reservations towards the man.
Smart thinking.
Thanks, big lady.
Ram said with a cheerful, tooth-filled grin, and it was the first time that Emily, Marill, and Humir had seen how large his top and bottom canines were. Ram continued on to tell them about the last group who camped near here, further down the valley, and where they had been hunting. They had been quite chatty with little Ram, and told him all about the power cells that they had been running across, as well as how they had been chased away from a broken-down, futuristic semi-truck that had 4 trailers mangled behind it.
Ram has seen it few times.
Ram said, running his finger along the inner folds of the food packet.
Big squares, fishy faces have it one day, then someone else the next.
Ram explained that he thought the trailers had some kind of lock on them, and that no one had enough time to saw through it due to it constantly changing hands. Marill looked towards Emily, cradling her second coffee pouch in a hand.
Do you think Jomesha's thermal cutters could blow through it?
If anyone has a chance of burning a hole in that metal, it would be Jomesha's alchemical thermite.
Emily said while tapping her chin with a finger.
We could either melt that lock or go in through the front of the trailers.
Or the sides.
Humir said, leaning back in her chair to look up at the clouds drifting through the sky.
Side walls are usually thinner, but then again, who knows where this came from and what their standards are?
Marill snorted.
None of us even knew what a tractor trailer was when we came through, Elf. If anyone has the presence of mind about the subject, it's Emily.
Was just trying to add in my 5 coppers to the conversation, centaur.
Humir said, waggling a foot at Marill. Emily kept idly tapping at her chin with her finger, looking from Ram to the forest edge from time to time until she fully formulated her thoughts.
I think we should forego fires for a few days. Head down tomorrow morning before daybreak so we can get a good eye on these trailers. If these are futuristic batteries, we can make a fucking mint by snatching up a few of them, as well as falling into Ogledoc's good graces.
Jomesha wouldn't mind a few batteries for himself, I'd reckon. That big armored car has a few systems that need a powerful battery, like the energy turret.
Marill said, then took a pull from the straw of her coffee pouch.
Ram?
Humir said, looking away from the sky and leaning towards his chair. Ram looked up from the nearly squeaky clean ration pouch.
Yeah?
Could you look after our camp that early in the morning? Perhaps we can give you a place to sleep here, if that would make it easier.
Humir said, pointing vaguely around the camp. Emily looked over towards Marill at the same time Ram did, raising her eyebrows.
Would you have a problem with that? big lady. No,
Marill said with a roll of her eyes.
I do not have a problem with it as long as we can track all of our stuff. He can't sleep in the tent, though.
Humir exhaled out her nose derisively.
Obviously. I just meant that he could sleep out here, perhaps near the kangaroo wagon where it's warm.
I can bring bed here.
Ram said, setting down the now completely cleaned ration pouch and hopping off of his chair.
Be right back.
See you in a little bit, Ram.
Emily said with a little wave, watching Ram as he waved back and took off at a trot, bounding through the grass and flowers with ease. Marill watched him go as well.
Professional camp watcher, huh?
Any port in a storm, and any wallet a future payday.
Emily mused, grabbing a coffee pouch and tearing open the drinking spout with a zip of the perforations. It didn't take long for Ram to reappear with what appeared to be a rather tall, rustic-looking rucksack. It was nearly 3 heads taller than himself and bound with natural cordage, paracord, and even what looked like freshly made leather. In only a few minutes, Ram had set up a little lean-to next to the fox body, laying out a multitude of blankets and pillows that may have either been scavenged, pilfered, or bought.
Right little vagabond, isn't he?
Humir said with a gentle laugh, watching as Ram fluffed up a large pillow that had the letters GRMCDT stitched onto the front. Emily nodded.
He must be living out in the elements and constantly on the move to find camps.
Little road traveler, I guess.
Marill said, fluffing out her hair with her hands, having been retying her braid.
Anyway, anything else that we're gonna be doing today?
Emily shrugged.
Probably not. This is the calm before the storm tomorrow, and I'd reckon we'll be using the night vision in the morning.
Yes, the spider eyes.
Humir said with a chuckle, holding 2 pairs of fingers out in front of her face.
We'll see them before they ever see us.
The rest of the day was spent lounging, all the way until the sun dipped below the tops of the trees. When it became clear no one else was close enough to pick up their signal emissions, Ram was charged with watching over the outside of the little camp, while Emily, Marill, and Humir retired inside the tent, staging their gear in a logical manner so that if they had to wake up, their plate carriers would be within a quick grabbing distance. The tent itself was a larger number, large enough to sleep 8 rather large species should the need arise, and how the shelves and racks were arranged parted the room into 2 separate sections. Humir had her own section, in which Emily could hear her tapping into the communication suite in order to indulge in her usual nightly ritual of watching funny videos on the internet. Marill was also fully aware that Humir did so with noise-canceling headphones, and carefully watched through the cracks in the shelf as she brushed her teeth. Due to how the field could be, Emily wore everything from a shirt to socks into bed, just in case they had to quickly launch themselves into action should the call arise. The application of ground futons meant that they could sleep anywhere with relative comfort and without the need of an air pump, and Emily lounged on the extra-large futon, scrolling through her phone to set the alarms for the morning. These same futons used a non-audio rumbling alarm, allowing those sleeping to come awake at both phone alarms, sentry picket alarms, and the like without also letting their possible enemies know. Marill saw Humir put in her headphones, quickly spat the foam from her mouth into a cup before rinsing with another, and nearly dove into the futon beside Emily.
Wait, Marill.
Emily sputtered out, having just entered into the 3rd alarm before the heavily muscled arms of the centauress wrapped around her and dragged her across the futon, eliciting a muffled cackle from Emily as she was dragged on top of Marill, who was laying on her back. Marill grinned up at Emily, slipping her hands past the rear waistband of Emily's sweatpants and gripping at her thick ass cheeks with strong fingers.
Now, I finally got you to myself.
I thought you'd want to wait at least a day before indulging in our field agreement.
Emily purred down at Marill, resting on an elbow as she ran her finger along the line where Marill's flesh stopped and the fur of her equine lower body began. Marill pressed Emily's butt cheeks together and gave them a wiggle, eliciting a giggle from Emily.
Hey, I could die tomorrow. And that means I have to get what I can out of life while I'm able.
How greedy. Who do you think you are, the savior of the earth and the plains beyond?
Emily murmured, splaying out her fingers and running her palm up Marill's thickly muscled stomach, rolling the tips of her digits along the little hills that made up Marill's abdominal muscles.
And here I thought you liked me for me. Yet you just want to treat me like some kind of floozy.
Marill stopped squishing Emily's butt cheeks, instead sliding her fingers in between them and calling forth a far different kind of noise from Emily.
You, a floozy? I would never.
I'm sure,
Emily said with a pleased, sultry smile on her lips, and she pushed Marill's shirt up and over her large, impressive breasts. She made sure to catch two rather sensitive points between her fingers, eliciting an excited hiss from Marill. Emily gasped out herself when Marill went on the offensive with her hands, running a strong finger along the ring of a rather personal area.
Come on. I always treat you like the princess you are.
Shut up.
Emily growled, then leaned down, pressing her lips hungrily against Marill's. Marill inhaled through her nose with excitement and jerked down Emily's sweatpants with an eagerness to match, exposing her pale, round ass cheeks to the dim light of the tent lamps. With both of her hands at work, it didn't take long until Marill had Emily moaning and gasping against her lips. Marill's late-night, intensive internet searches on how to please a human woman were paying off, evidently. Humir, having taken out her earbuds when the sound went out on the funny cat video compilation she was watching, hunched in surprise when a throaty moan drifted into her ears. Opening the forward-facing camera on her phone, she poked the lens over her shoulder, the screen reflecting the video of Emily's ass cheeks jiggling in the open air as Marill made use of her wrist muscles. The quiet sound of a soft, wet, vigorous noise filled Humir's ears, and it reminded Humir of when her mother would stir cake batter in the royal kitchens. Humir then heard the muted groans and a light pop of lips coming away from flesh, Marill hissing and moaning, and she very slowly brought the phone back down.
This is fucking absurd,
Humir hissed to herself, just below the audible level of hearing, though the sounds were intriguing, and she began to blush as she felt her body reacting to them. Thinking quickly, she sneaked a hand towards her plate carrier and snatched up her hearing protection, slapping the electronic muffs over her ears and then whipping her pillow over her head.
So fucking rude,
Humir hissed into her pillow and did her best to keep her mind clear while trying to connect her phone to the Bluetooth in her earmuffs. Ram, on the other hand, had heard the noises, but knew he was not allowed inside the tent. So he instead hummed to himself while making fresh cordage, working the fibers around his hands and twisting them into a smooth, attractive rope. When he had made around 5 feet of cordage, he reached over and opened one of the 5 dessert pouches Marill had given him, pulling out a dark chocolate brownie.
Big ladies say don't go inside, so I stay outside,
Ram said with a grin, as he knew full damn well what was going on inside that tent. But 5 sweet treats and the threat of death was more than enough for him to mind his own business.
And that's the end of Emily Braun's Blood and Lamentations Chapter 10. If you like the story and others like them, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel of Garbro's Field Desk. Click the bell icon, comment down below. Please comment, it keeps me alive. The comments keep me alive. As well as put in your input and critique on our voice acting and the lines and etc., and all that fun stuff. Now, if you really like the story and the channel and the stories, be sure to drop by the coffee and go and join our membership program, which sounds like I'm a fucking gym. With these memberships, you get sneak peeks into the chapters, little snippets. Now, the thing is that there's 3 tiers. There's the first shirts, the E4 Mafia, and Snuffy Squad. Snuffy Squad is the most basic tier at $5 a month. You get a little snippet from the story. E4 Mafia is $25 a month. You get more or less a couple paragraphs. And then first shirt is $50 a month, and that gets an entire page or 2 of upcoming chapters. And of course, it helps just safeguard the. I can't stop burping today. I'm so sorry. It helps safeguard the channel and make sure that despite the fact that YouTube pays us fucking nothing, we're able to pay the VAs and all that fun stuff. You guys know how this works, don't you? I'm pretty sure you do. Now, one thing I keep forgetting to do is to thank the people who give to me, which I don't know why I keep forgetting that. Anyway, for first shirts, Insane Medic, Dopey X, Death's Dancer, Doc Morse, Cody Jiro, and Imashino. Thank you for giving $50 a month. Now, what's currently leading is Death's Dancer has given over $900 alone to the channel, so he's kind of big pimpin' in terms of modern vernacular. To my E4 Mafia, thank you Kiwi Bastard, Jake Spears, Matty Boy, Noah Freeman, Flash of Green, Josh Beatty, and Crusader 0625. And of course, thank you to all of Snuffy Squad for just being you, just being Snuffy Squad. But until we see you next time on this side of the veil, that was Hailey, that was Vynn, that was Annika Storm, our narrator, that was Danger, our senior female VA, and this is Guard Bros Field Desk.